Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, DJ Adam Cruz, and I'm sitting here with my fantastic co-host,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, DY Music Radio, and the Freedom Radio Music Hour. What up, Mr. Cruz?
I'm so delighted to see you. I've been dying to get together with you because I have a lot to tell you.
What? Tell me.
Well, let's take a moment and let our listeners and our viewers know that the Freedom Radio Hour is here, not only giving you fantastic music, but we're here to be your number one source for music, business, news, and trends from around the globe. All right, so we got to talk about it. Every single year in our community of house, we love to get together at various seminars, summits, and conferences. One in particular that has been a huge conference for us in house music. You see, we love our house music, but we like it slower. We like it a little bit more soulful, meaningful in nature.
Gospel tinge,
yes,
uplifting, all of that stuff.
So there's several of us, a bunch of us that love that kind of music. So we all get together every year in Miami, Florida, here in the States, for the Winter Music Conference. It happens the last week of March every year. But usually around the late fall, like around Thanksgiving time, you'll start to get a notice from the WMC letting you know the date for the following year's conference, early bird specials maybe, where you can get like the cheapest registration fee if you register early, save the dates, other hotel information, all that usually comes around Thanksgiving, late fall time. Well, this year, I should say last year, the WMC didn't do any such thing.
And rumors started to arise and float about.
Yes, because Thanksgiving came and went, December, we're getting into Christmas came and went, nothing was going on. We're almost to the new year now and still no announcement. So people started to call their main office. And when they called their main office, what did they discover?
Disconnected.
Yes, the phone was disconnected. That's right. So it makes it feel like, okay.
The party that you have reached is currently not
available.
Not available, not in service, something
not
like that.
Not in service, that's
not
right.
Not in service.
Yeah, so evidently the WMC was not in service late last year. And that, coupled with the fact that the website was not updated to include any new information, it led most of us to believe that the WMC was now dead. Why do we think that? Well, you just have to go back a few years. And I know for one, when the parties that I love to attend, these sort of soulful dance events, I noticed over the years started to change and morph and evolve. What do I mean? Over the years, less and less people were registered for that actual conference. I turned to my left and say, hey, Eddie, are you registered? No, I didn't register. Oh, okay. Hey, you, Barbara, did you register? Oh, okay. No, I didn't register. I'm just here to network and party and come together. And I'm like, yeah, me too. So we're all doing this, but year in, year out, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later, less and less people were actually registering for the conference. I'm talking about the panel discussions, the exhibits, any of the presentations that they offer. And so I always felt like that spelled doom and gloom. And thank God for social media, because what happened was at the top of the following year, no announcement came. People started to, those, like you said, the rumors started to float, and they waited until March of this month.
And then boom.
They just said, what? Come on down.
Come on down.
The conference is happening.
And again, thanks to the people that are connected within our network, they were able to share the information, because I found out through Barbara Tucker.
Right. Okay.
That's the queen. That's our ambassador right there.
Right.
And then Ultra Nate, she was going down. Louis Vega. You started seeing all these people that are vested in that annually go down. They were able to basically go down, I guess, with the people that originally organized it. They're taking it like back to its roots. It wasn't as big as it was from what I heard, but it was still a good time had by all for those that did go.
I think that's partly why we're seeing this sort of weird transition with the WMC, because a lot of us used that opportunity to book a vacation, a getaway, and we weren't really music business minded around these conferences. That's actually the point of why we were to get together.
And again, especially with the advent of this, maybe this smaller type of what they have done will allow them to sit back and be more conscious of how they now move forward, and maybe keeping it, while we do want it large, we still want to keep the networking as the
intimacy.
focus, the intimacy and the networking as the main focus of that.
I agree with that, but I think we're going to have to really deal with the big elephant in the room around the WMC, which is if you paid attention over the years, you would see it coupled with Miami Music Week. Then it was coupled with the Ultra Music Festival, which to our soulful dance, Ultra Music Festival represents, that's the EDM sort of counterpart, the big glitzy, big room.
The big money.
Yeah, Tiesto would be on there, Deadmau5, artists and producers and DJs like that would frequent that kind of festival, where for us, that wasn't quite our cup of tea. We liked it more soulful in nature. So I noticed that, though, over the years, because you had... I remember once it was like coupled with some sort of hip hop event or some sort of spring break, that all of it that 1 year was like an awful year for traffic and what do you call interbreeding of different things all together. It created quite a mess, you know? And so I always...
Gouging of prices for the hotels, gouging of food, gouging of everything.
Well, I find it fascinating that we're dealing with this very discussion. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to tell you even more about what the WMC has announced, and I want to get your opinion about it right here on the Freedom Radio Hour.
91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, D-Wild Music Radio, the Freedom Music Radio Hour.
Come back with us. Singer, songwriter, performer, and host Eddie Nicholas debuts his fantastic new album. Released in conjunction with mixtape sessions and Deck Music imprint, Eddie brings you a 16-track album full of fantastic jams upon jams, perfect for any dance floor. The album includes records like Fall in Love, Goomba, and Groovin'. Check out EddieNicholas.com and TrackSource for his brand new LP.
Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
What up, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. I'm one of your hosts, the one and only Mr. Eddie Nicholas, and I'm sitting up here with the one and only Mr.
Adam Cruz, and you're live and direct right here with us on the Freedom Radio Hour, your number one source for music, business, news, and trends from around the globe. We're talking about the WMC for starters. So the latest goings on with the WMC is, in recap, is that it took an awful long time for them to announce that the 2018 conference will indeed be happening, and come on down and join us down in Miami, Florida for that conference. So I found it really interesting. Two big takeaways. One is, what I noticed is that with or without a WMC, the sort of most influential, most popular events, most popular DJs in our scene still had their functions going on. There was not a beat missed at all, right? So that kind of made me think, okay, is the conference really nothing more than us traveling down to Miami to support these few powerful DJs in their events? Or is it actually a networking opportunity still?
I still think it provides people the opportunity to commune.
Yes.
Now, whether or not you network and all that other stuff, that's one's choice. But if given the opportunity to be with these people and gather with people from other places from around the world, that alone presents itself for an atmosphere of possibilities.
Well, that's why I find it so interesting that they took so long to announce that they were doing a conference, because I would think you would want your international audience, if you were the conference folks, so you would want to give them enough time to book their tickets, etc.
Well, evidently, the international folks were there.
Yes, it seems like they were already there.
And again, because it all was molded and, as you said, twined or intertwined with Ultra and these other festivals and all that type of stuff, it had an audience there.
Yeah, and I also think it lost its brand, because when you start
the brand has been
enveloped.
Sucked.
Yeah,
Enveloped.
Yeah, exactly. Because there was a time when people say, I'm going down, I'll see you down for Miami Music Week, and I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, they're not even calling it the Winter Music Conference anymore. You know, so that was the one big takeaway.
And that's part of Miami, and how they probably wanted stuff branded in regards to how they want to get people down here to come to as tourists.
Right. Well, the second sort of huge item and takeaway about this news from the WMC is that while they announced really late in the year that they're coming back, they also took the time to announce that they have been purchased and will be merging with the Ultra Music Festival. So now, some are saying, oh, this is a good sign for us on the soulful side because the muscle and prowess that the Ultra Music Festival has now in Miami, they can use that to leverage for whatever they're going to do on the soulful side to fund in a better way the Winter Music Conference, perhaps subsidize or sponsor in some way some of these other events so that they can get most bang for their buck for having purchased the Winter Music Conference. On the other side, though, they're saying that they're arguing, and I find this one a little bit interesting, that what you're doing by allowing a corporate entity like an Ultra to buy it, you're actually removing the intimacy, the networking, the altruism, that coming together, that communal feel that you just talked about.
You're removing the roots.
You're removing the soul and roots of what we were there to do. In favor of this sort of corporate approach. But I think that's our fault. Because if you're not buying the registration packages every year for the conference, it stands to reason that after a while they're going to look to all the audiences who are willing to buy into the conference and turning their backs on people like us in the soulful dance scene. Why? Because simply put, we don't support them.
And I always felt that with WMC, it should have kind of like followed the adage. What is that big Afro thing that they do over in Brooklyn every year?
The Soul Summit?
They just had Grace Jones.
Oh, Afropunk.
Afropunk.
Yes.
Afropunk, from what I saw, has now become a worldwide phenomenon.
Yes, and they're doing Afropunks around the world.
And
well, that's what Ultra is.
And to me, WMC should have allowed itself to be branded and expanded.
And to other cities.
WMC could have been held in Puerto Rico. WMC could have been held in New York. New York had its own little festivals, but again, where was the garnered really major support?
And I think that's what we're not really talking about. For some of us, there was even like Jesse Saunders, one of our house music pioneers.
Oscar P.
Was that Oscar P?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So Jesse Saunders went live and said, "Look what the WMC has become. Look what Miami looks like. It's all hip hop, trap, reggaeton, and none of this no house music." And he was really upset. What do we do to bring the house music back? I say, well, the first thing is, when you have conferences that are willing to support the soulful scene, we have to support it by registering. And that means me too. I'm not righteous about this. I too hardly ever registered for the conference. I might have maybe once, so I think that's sort of the big takeaway here.
You have to vest yourself in it. And if you don't vest yourself in it, you only get out of it what you put into it.
Yes, and I think now we'll have to wait and see what Ultra does to reinvigorate the conference. Will it be just morphed into Miami Music Week? Will it be something else?
Well, let's just hope that on that corporate board that there is a diversity of opinions and choices when it comes to choosing artists and music, because once we go to corporate, things become very gentrified.
That means less roots. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more, especially all around Spotify and some latest drama you should know about right here on the Freedom Radio Hour.
91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. I love drama.
Mixtape Sessions is proud to present singer, songwriter, actor, and Mixtape Sessions recording artist Jacqueline Graham. Produced by DJ and label head Adam Cruz, the Jacqueline plea includes Inside My Head and You Showed Me Your Love. Check out Jacqueline Graham and the Jacqueline EP, available to stream everywhere now. Mixtape Sessions, music for the people.
Freedom Radio Hour.
And we're back live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, and on the web at dwopmusicradio.com. You're deep in the zone right here on the Freedom Radio Hour. We're your number one source for music business news and trends from around the globe. Sitting here talking with my partner.
What up, beautiful people? I am sitting here and I'm just taking in all of this wonderful, wonderful knowledge. But you were talking about some drama.
Yes.
As we went
to... we got to talk about it. So Spotify is now officially a publicly owned and traded company. You can buy shares into Spotify.
I got to find me some money.
Get your money together. Get your coins together, because you can now purchase shares into Spotify. Quick recap, Spotify didn't go the original route to go public. They decided on this direct listing, which is a non-traditional approach. And so they did that primarily because they weren't fundraising. You see, when you go public, oftentimes, if you're a company like Spotify, this is a fundraising exercise. You want to get a lot of money to clear up any debt and expand yourself to do other things, right? But Spotify's not trying to do that. They weren't trying to fundraise, go public to fundraise, in other words. They did this direct listing, and they wanted people like their own employees and investors to be able to trade and sell their shares, okay? So that's kind of what's happening. Very interestingly enough, though, remember we spent episodes prior talking about how the CEO of Spotify spent last year inflating the value of Spotify. And now that Spotify has gone public, what we're doing essentially is lifting the proverbial rug, putting a flashlight to look inside all of the analytics around Spotify. And some tasty morsels have revealed itself.
Oh, reveal.
So first thing I want to talk about is this term called debt raise. You see, the reason why Spotify said we don't need to raise funds like a traditional IPO does, that's initial public offering. We don't need to go that route. Why? Because they had no outstanding debt. Why do you say that? Well, they dealt with their debt. You see, they did in fact have over $1 billion in debt. And what they did, starting more than 5 years ago, were to host these rounds where they invited venture capitalists to buy debt. Well, how does that work? A very simple way to understand it. Eddie, you need me to lend you $100. It's January. You say, lend me the $100. At the end of the year, in December, I will pay you back the $100 and 10% interest, so $110 you're going to hand me in December. Here you go. Here's the $100. You go on your merry way. Now it's halfway through the year. I say, I want my money back. I don't want to wait till the end of the year to get $110 back. So what I do is I sell that debt that you owe me to someone else. I'm selling it to Jacqueline. Jacqueline pays me $50 to sell that debt over. Now I lost $60 if you do the math, but I don't care because I didn't want to wait. I'm on my merry way, and in December, when you're ready to pay, you are now paying Jacqueline.
Case in point, you know those little envelopes that you get in the mail from different creditors, from especially creditors that you have not ever heard of. What Adam is describing, yes, you from your original person that you owed the money to, they sold what you owe to them to a creditor to offset that, as Adam said, so they can move on their very way. So in the simplistic terms, a creditor buying another creditor's what you owe.
Yeah,
your debt.
Yes, has been
and passing your debt to see if they can collect it.
So, in order for this to go down, Spotify hosted these sort of round tables, these rounds where they invited venture capitalists. Those are people with lots of money to buy this debt and then sell it on, because that is a very, very handsome business.
Yes, that's $1 billion industry within itself.
And so in exchange for Spotify hosting these rounds and allowing venture capitalists to do that, venture capitalists were paid in shares. So one case in point is a company called TCV Affiliates. And through their work, what they did was one of those fundraising rounds to deal with the debt, they backed it up entirely, $250 million. So they got what's the equivalent of 5.4% of the shares of Spotify in total by doing that back in 2013. So now that they've gone public, you know that TCV Affiliates is going to make a handsome reward by being able to back them so many years ago. You're seeing this in other ways too, not just TCV. This other company called Tiger Global spent a lot of time investing in music companies like Spotify. They too end up owning 5.something% of the company. One of the biggest in this lot, Sony Music. We talked about how record labels, our three biggest labels, Sony Music, Warner, and UMG, all signed new deals with Spotify so that their music could be available on the Spotify site. But in order to sign, they sweetened the pot, Spotify did, and gave them things like shares in Spotify, $3 million in ad space just to use whenever they wanted. Those companies could take it and sell that on to have to make a little advertising business with that $3 million.
And I can assure you that's exactly what Sony is doing.
Well, the very fascinating thing is that Spotify has had to deal with this debt raise, so now they don't have outstanding debt, and they basically put the risk on, you know, in this scenario, the venture capitalist, you know, and I find that interesting. The other thing is that now that they've gone public, Spotify, I argue, has started to sort of backpedal their worth and their growth because now the real information's coming out. So Spotify is saying we're looking this year to grow about 20 to 30%. Isn't that great? Like, yeah, but wait a minute. Last year, you grew by 40%. So, in other words, you're still growing, but at a much smaller pace. Yeah.
Smaller pace.
So, all this means for you and I is what? Number one, if you want to have a seat at the table in the music game, one of the things you might want to consider is owning shares in companies like a Spotify, because as you see, it might be advantageous for you to buy some shares, maybe $1,500 worth or something, and see where this takes you, because it looks like they're standing to grow at least 20 to 30%. So your investment will work for you, at least for this year.
At least for this year. And, and with the advent and the emergence of streaming services, you're already in there.
Exactly. And the other thing, too, is that Spotify is very keen on making sure you all understand that whatever lawsuits they have pending, and they have quite a few, they're looking to be able to get beyond that and grow in a really substantial way. But I want you all to remember that our three biggest labels own shares in Spotify. So if Spotify tanks in any way, these three major labels will suffer in losses.
They may suffer in losses, but at the same token, with their greed, they will step in and buy them up.
But what if it was our music, though, that was up there? What if you were a Sony Music artist and the value of their stock plummeted because of whatever happened in the volatile market? You know what I'm saying? I think we need to be aware of that. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make it your business to visit us at freedomradiohour.com. Leave a comment under everything we're posting. We'd love to hear from you. Check out the Do You Wanna Dance LP, available everywhere to stream and download now. Mr. Eddie Nicholas, super, super, super incredible debut album. 16 tracks of lusciousness. Gotta check that out.
Love it. And make sure you check out Adam Cruz on his senior LP. I can't with him. www.adamcruz.com.
Yes, DJAdamCruz.com. Check us out and check out our free app. If you want to know things about the music business, you want episodes of our podcast, merch, etc., we have a free podcast for Android and iPhone users. Search us out, Freedom Radio Hour. Have a great weekend and a great week ahead. See you next time.
Peace and love.